Trinidad and Tobago. I'm Hema Ramkissoon, and this is the Morning Brew. How are you today? It is a beautiful Monday morning. It's the beginning of a brand new work week. And this morning we are shifting focus a little bit out of politics. And joining us on set, the head of the EMA, Allan Bachan. Mr. Bachan, good morning. How are you?
Morning, Hema. Good morning to your viewers as well.
In terms, before we begin the actual topic of iCARE and looking at community awareness, recycling every day, in terms of the last 5 years, the environment and making moves to protect the environment, ensuring that we regulate the industries, how far in terms of progress have we made? Have we actually achieved?
Oh, Hema, I would tell you, I think we've come a long way from where we were. We need to understand that the regulatory function of our environmental stewardship mandate lagged behind the development that was taking place in Trinidad and Tobago. And a lot had to be developed over the last few years, specifically, and I've said it in previous shows, we need to fix the legislation. We need to ensure that we have a suite of legislation that addresses all the environmental challenges such that we could have some degree of management in the protection of the environment, which is critical.
Now, in terms of passing of legislation and enforcing legislation, looking at specific industries such as the energy industry, the oil industry, and moving forward to, the Betham landfill project, what are we really going to do about things like that?
Well, Hema, the move right now with regard to, okay, let's take a step back. In the past, we used to consider all waste as municipal waste. That includes normal organic waste from our households, industrial waste, medical waste, hazardous waste. All of this was going into our landfill. 2.2 kilograms per inhabitant per day. We're talking about 1,548 tons per day, 658,000 tons per year. But out of that, there is recyclable materials. 50 million plastic bottles every month. We have 1 million glass bottles every month. And Hema, interestingly, one of the biggest challenges is tires. And ironically, they find themselves within our rivers and watercourses. We're talking about 800,000 tires per year that we don't know where it's going. So what has been the EMA has been looking at is that we have over the last few months been creating the waste rules, and we have categorized it under non-hazardous waste and hazardous waste. I'll tell you something again, Hema, which is very worrisome outside there. We have something like 8% of our municipal waste that's reaching our landfills that is actually medical and hazardous waste. That should be very concerning to the public.
And what's being done to address it?
Well, as I said, it's being addressed from a number of fronts. Right now, from a municipal waste perspective, the Ministry of Local Government with SWIMCOL is basically developing a municipal waste action plan with the assistance of the IADB. As part of that action plan, it's going to look at how we address the landfill issue. But if we're talking about 658,000 tons of waste or garbage, as we call it, generating every year, in order for us to address the landfill situation and remediate and regularize the landfill and even move to closing certain landfills, we have to start reducing the amount of waste going to these landfills. 60% of the waste going into our landfill, 60 to 70% of our waste going to our landfills are recyclable materials. If we take that out of the system, what we are talking about is we have a reduction in the amount of waste going there and a better ability to manage the rehabilitation of our landfill sites.
Now, I have to ask you this, Mr. Bachan, in terms of the role of the EMA in doing that. Is it time for another environmental organization to specifically handle the recycling portfolio, or should the EMA be restructured and transformed?
Hema, I've been asked that question in a number of spheres. And the question is this the responsibility of the EMA? Why is the EMA involved in recycling? And I would ask the question back, why not? Somebody has to get it moving. Somebody has to address it. We have been mandated to develop waste legislation. How are we going to develop waste legislation unless the enabling mechanisms to allow for us to enact those pieces of legislation from a regulatory standpoint is implemented in the system? And to answer your question, the intention of these sorts of programs in terms of recycling is to create the framework that would allow for when the recycling authority comes on stream, that they will adopt the system and the lessons learned, and they will have a springboard in which to address waste management, recycling on a whole in Trinidad.
Why has the environmental legislative agenda been kept back? Is it that it's not sexy enough, or the stakeholders are not attractive enough in terms of the voting population?
I don't think the legislative agenda has been held back. I think there are multiple areas that needed to be in sync with each other, and that has been the challenge over the years, whereby we enact legislation and one legislation is contrary to another piece of legislation. So in order to ensure that there is a suite of legislation that complements each other, time is being taken. I'll tell you, right now we have draft waste legislation, solid waste and hazardous waste. But the issue becomes is that how it will fit into the bigger picture needs some tweaking.
Now, I know that we are running out of time for this interview, and you are originally scheduled to discuss the iCARE in terms of community awareness recycling and everyday National Recycling Week. And I know we have a graphic to accompany this part of the interview. The iCARE project is a phase 2. Oh, it's actually supposed to be phase 2 of the beverage containers cleanup project, and is aimed at encouraging recycling across Trinidad and Tobago to reduce the amount of solid waste being sent to our already overburdened landfills. But this project will encourage citizens to be more proactive and involved in recycling at homes, communities, and schools across the island. So that's something to definitely be aware of. It's National Recycling Week. What are you hoping to see come out of this project?
Well, Hema, what I'm hoping that comes out of this project is the awareness. When we did the initial project, which was the beverage container project, we look at establishing the infrastructure at the end, the end stream. That is giving swim call the wherewithal to recycle plastics and to be able to address other streams of waste, cans, bottles, and the like. So swim call under that first phase, so we have the end user being addressed. If you remember, Plastic Keep's concern when they were doing their recycling project is, what do I do with this now?
Right.
And this second phase is intended to address the issue of, we will establish depots which will do the sorting, the segregation of the waste, make it available to the private sector, inclusive of swim call. We will put bins out into public spaces so that the public can bring their waste to these areas, that we can then take it and carry it to these depots. So this is the main intention, to bring awareness. We have a school program that is planned, whereby we are going to basically push throughout Trinidad the recycling initiative within the school system, and that will start very early in the next school term. And Hema, springboarding from that, I am hoping that the next phase will be curbside pickup. I'll tell you something. Right now, it costs $320 million every year to address the issues of our garbage. If we recycle 50% of our garbage, what we will have is about a 33% drop in the cost of municipal waste collection. We will have a saving of $107 million. The end of the day, it would also facilitate a circular economy to be created, whereby we have resource efficiency, we have jobs, we have economic growth. We will reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, Hema, and that's very important. And we will also reduce the dependency on imported raw materials. And that is where we need to go. Trinidad and Tobago needs to understand, and I think they do. The public is fully aware. This weekend, we did collection throughout Trinidad, and there was great support from the public.
Where does the bulk of our waste come from? If you had to say 50% comes from the industrial sector, 20% home-related, in terms of the type of waste and who's most guilty of it?
Emma, I think all of us have to take responsibility. I am not aware of the statistics with regard to house owners, as well as the exact statistics with regard to house owners, as well as corporate TNT. The last figure that I had last year is that in terms of waste generation, 60%, around 60% was from the household and 40% was from businesses. That figure may have changed, but the great thing about this is that now there's a move to increase the statistics, the generation of statistics in terms of waste in Trinidad and Tobago, because it is intended that once we have these sorts of statistics, we will be able to make better policy decisions and develop better programs that would allow us to address the problems such as waste management in Trinidad and Tobago.
As we wrap this interview, remind Trinidad and Tobago again about the iCARE project. How do they get involved? And it's National Recycling Week.
The public can go onto our website. They can go onto our Facebook page at iCARE TT and like us. Information is being put there on the iCARE program. I urge the public to give feedback as to what suggestions they can make. We are always open to constructive comments. And whatever, it is only with the public's assistance and the public support can programs like this be successful here.
Understanding the implications of your footprint and your waste footprint and what are you contributing to our society. We'll take a very short break. When we come back, Joelle D'Souza joins us on set. An independent voice. Stay with us.